Good afternoon, folks. My name is Francis Collado. I'm your Executive Director of Visual Communications. And you want to say hi?
Hi,
What's your name?
Olivia.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. And I'm coming from you from Long Beach, and we acknowledge the Tongva people, the stewards of this land, before we came to live here. Just want to thank you for being with us and creating community with us here at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. And thank you to our supporters, especially our community partners, for your valuable work. If you'd like to read the captions of this program, please find the link in the chat. Our next E3 Converse Artist Conversation centers around the stories being shared by storytellers from the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective. For some folks, this seems to be a departure from Asian Pacific focus of the festival, but we do beg to differ. VC's hope in presenting these stories is that these stories, while specific, are universal, and which connects us through our shared experiences. So folks, everybody turn your cameras on and please say hi to everybody. Welcome, folks. Thank you for being with us today. I just want you all to think of being here, their gratitude and your trust for visual communications and presenting your stories. I'd like to spotlight Seth Hernandez Ronquillo first. I just want to thank you for your collective leadership and building power within this community. Can you please share with folks and walk us through how this all began?
Thank you so much, Francis, for the invitation. And hi, everyone. Seth Hernandez Ronquillo. They also use other gender pronouns. Joining you all from Occoneechee, Saponi, ancestral lands here in also what's known as Durham, North Carolina. And it is kind of serendipitous because it was about exactly 2 years ago when the Undocumented Filmmakers first began. And also just want to give huge gratitude to the vision of our co-founder, Rahi Hassan, who is in the same house as me right now, actually, who is hosting me here today. In many ways, this feels like almost a second-year anniversary for the collective to be able to showcase the work of our filmmakers in this way. I think for a long time, you know, undocumented filmmakers have been doing a lot of great work, but rarely being given the resources and the platforms to really share our stories, being excluded from funding opportunities, from job opportunities because of immigration status, in spite of the fact that there's so many films being told about the experiences of undocumented folks. And I think from that collective need and collective desire, it was in the Getting Real conference by the IDA, and also with the support really of Firelight Media, who brought me and Rahi together through the Firelight Media Impact Producer Fellowship with the support of Sonia Childress, who in so many ways is the godparent of this collective. That's how Rahi and I were able to meet, sharing our experiences as undocumented filmmakers. And from there, you know, at Getting Real, there was this conversation around decolonizing the documentary field. And what does that look like when we also look at the experiences of undocumented folks? You know, we build on the legacy of amazing undocumented filmmakers like Tam Tran, you know, who 10 years ago to this year actually passed away in a car accident, you know, who was a VC supported filmmaker through Armed with a Camera in 2006, 2007, you know, the work of Undeportable Productions, Will Prada is here, you know, the work of Undocumedia, the work of Marcos Nieves, who is also here, one of the OG undocumented filmmakers, Miko Revereza, you know, and from those conversations, you know, we're kind of leading this isolated struggles, and the desire came about to be able to bring ourselves together. So Rahi in Durham, North Carolina, myself in Los Angeles, Claudia Ramirez, Dorian Gomez, and Miko, the five of us kind of started having these phone calls to just share space, you know, and over the course of the following months, we started to bring more purpose into those conversations. And in March 2019, we had our kind of first official meeting as a collective in my apartment. Lidiet was there, Dario was there, I forget who else was there, but so many folks were there, and being able to really understand that, our experiences, and when we come together, we can make systemic change happen in this field, building upon the legacy of other undocumented organizers. 2 years later, we are still here sharing our films through this program. Thank you to Ame, to Josin, to Rahi, who really made all of this possible, to Francis and Asil, and looking forward to being able to hear from everyone in this program about the work you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Again, I want to give love to Firelight, Laura, and all the folks. I think this last time I saw most of you folks in person was at the Firelight House at Sundance, and giving that space. And really, I think that's when the inception with this program, and really coming from visual communications, wanted to just, sort of see where would this come and how we can present stories for that way. I want to pop it over to Dario. Dario has to take off for another panel, but I was really, all of us from the programming team was just blessed and appreciate that there was this, your feature documentary was in here, Dario. I don't have a specific question for you. It's just a very, very powerful film that just sort of sharing not yourself, but your mom and your family. I just want to give you space to talk about your film and anything else that sort of transpired, since then. It's been a couple of years since the film came out and a couple of years since you graduated, but welcome to the space, Dario.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for watching my film and for setting all this up. Rocio, well, first of all, it's the name of my mom, and it's the name of my first feature film. I started it when I was a junior in college because my mom fell sick with cancer, and her doctors told her there was nothing else that they could do. We tried 3 different types of chemo, and she just steadily started getting worse. And I thought to myself, well, if she dies and I just, sat down and listened to what the doctors said, I'll never be able to forgive myself if that's all I do. So what my family did was we looked into alternative medicine, and I mean, it was a long battle, took several months, but my mom actually lived far beyond what her doctors had said. And it was basically thanks to my family's research and our alternative approach to the cancer. And all throughout this experience, I just had the camera rolling. At first, I was filming because I was studying film in college, and I wanted to make a film, and I really didn't have time to do anything else besides take care of my mom. So I figured, hey, this is a pretty impactful story that's happening right in front of me, and I might as well film this, see what happens with it. The making of the film, the editing, and trying to put it out into the world, it was initially motivated by a desire to share my pain and my narrative. I guess it was very ego-driven. And for that reason, for those reasons, it wasn't working at first. It took me 2 years of editing. I graduated in 2016, and I spent 1 year in college, 2 years after, just editing the film nonstop. Thankfully, I was at home. I didn't have DACA at the time because a piece of the story that happens in the film is I deport myself. So in coming back to the United States, although the federal government allows me to return, they don't allow me to have DACA again. So I don't have a work permit. I graduated from Harvard, and I'm basically stuck at home helping my dad. And if I don't have to help him, thank God, I can just work on the film. So for a couple of years, I'm editing the film and trying to figure out what exactly it is about myself, my family, and my mom that I want to share with the world. Because I really, I was in a bad place in my life. I felt like I had nothing. Like I had so much to process, such a huge loss, and I have to somehow rebuild myself from this. So what actually ended up happening in the making of Rocio is I ended up telling a story not for myself, but for my mom. A story that even if nobody else in the world sees the film, I'm going to be happy that I can share it with my mom, wherever she may be. So what I ended up doing was all the clips in the film that I knew my mom had not. There was a lot of footage that I took where my mom said, you know, Dario, don't film this, or, you know, get the camera away. All those moments where I thought, hey, I'm making a film. You know, it's better to have the camera rolling and have too much footage than have too little. I changed my mentality and figured, you know, what's more important is respecting my mother's wishes. And hey, even if this film resonates with nobody, at least I know I kept it authentic. And as soon as I changed my mindset and started editing under those rules, the film just started unfolding in on many more levels than I could have imagined. Finally, when I felt like I could do nothing more to edit and make the film better, I started showing it to people in 2018. And I mean, to my surprise, they loved it. My ego sort of like, I would say it's been slowly melting away. And now I'm here, I'm working with the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective. Now that I guess I've got this out of my system, where I've told the world who I am and figured out for myself who I am, what I'm about. I guess now the next step is, how can I use the skills I've learned to help others figure out their stories? And you know, one thing, I've always been a big fan of hip hop, and I always realize that like a lot of artists, the first album they make that's usually really awesome is like their story of self. It's where they figure themselves out. And so once we take care of that, you know, the world becomes your oyster. And so, you know, I feel like I've figured that out. And now there's so many filmmakers that we're coming into contact with through the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective around the country that are at different levels in their career. And I want to use the skills that I have to help them figure that out and share their stories. Because I think the most powerful part of my film was how unique it was. And every single person has a story just as unique, just as idiosyncratic. And that's where I think the universal themes and relatability comes from. So I'm excited to share it with you all. And, you know, I look forward to seeing what comes next. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Dario. I really love how, I don't know which part of the process you came through, just putting together with some of home videos that your parents took, but I think it was sort of beautifully shot and mailed it together to sort of give experience and sort of from the point of view from your parents. I know you have to go, but thank you for sharing space with us. I just want to share from us that while you're the filmmaker for this, your mom was also the filmmaker, sort of getting the audience, and especially with your dad too. So yeah, but thank you for this. We hope for people to watch it. This is really something that I think we're just really deep and just feel so just home. So if that's the word I can, yeah. But
thank you. It's my pleasure. I look forward to working with you all again.
We'll see you soon, okay? Thanks, Dario. Folks, I want to bring up Paulo. Paulo was really the person tasked to curate all this together and really masterfully in a way, and that Paulo, you know, you have films in here as well, but also can you just talk about the curation process and how'd you put all this together?
Yeah, thanks, Francis, for having me and everyone here. My name is Paulo Rain, based over at Carson, California. Grew up in North Side, Long Beach. Pronouns are he, is him. Yeah, I guess I put together the films curated in a way where it kind of shows all of our like, it kind of humanizes and normalizes who we are as individuals in a society that constantly labels and tries to deem what our value is. And I think that's something that I really wanted to tackle was people's values and people's worths, and kind of being in a society where one group of people is kind of seen a little bit more valued than somebody else due to, I guess, whether it be status or worth or contributions. And so I created this list based off of my experiences and other experiences of other undocumented folks, whether they be Latinx or API or Undocu Black. We all collectively kind of live through this experience of being undocumented and not recognize that we're human beings at the end of the day. And we're also we're also filmmakers. So it's kind of showcase that these are our stories, but whether they be very uplifting or beautifully agonizing. But it's also the reality and how we are able to kind of capture that, and we are more than capable of capturing and filming and putting these films together. Is I think it's a big hit of what I really wanted to kind of show is that in a lot of festivals and a lot of, I guess, media companies or streaming platforms such as like Netflix and everything like that, they'll constantly always show undocumented folks through some form of like trauma or trauma porn or some form of like disadvantage. Well, I feel like I really wanted this curated list to show that yes, like we are documenting and we are sharing and we are writing these narratives, but we also made and we also produced and we worked with little to what we have, and we're still able to kind of come out and thrive through it all.
Well, thank you, Paula. One of your films, Shaded Complexion, really talks about the message of commodification, right? And sort of the commodification of these experiences and to just do that upon. I also want to move into your other film that you showed, which was How Are You? Can you just really talk about the family dynamics in that?
Yeah, so Kamusta came when I was in college. I went to UC Santa Cruz, and I'm a first generation college student, Filipino, but I grew up with I grew up closely with the Latinx community in the barrio. And I felt like there was always films about being a first generation college student or some form of platform like that, but it was always shown through like a Latinx lens, and never really like an API or Asian Pacific Islander lens, where it's like, and I kind of saw that where it was like we didn't, or at least I would watch some films on like YouTube, like short films, or I'd watch some films, and it never really tackled that dynamic of, hey, not all of us are crazy rich Asians, or not all of us are have the luxury of traveling the world or coming from a place of like privilege or luxury. Some of us have to kind of sometimes leave home and leave our responsibilities in order to pursue higher education and travel our dreams and everything. So that film kind of came into fruition because I really wanted to show that. And I interviewed a lot of Filipinos at my school at the time on the dynamics of, why are they going to college, and what did they have to sacrifice just to go to college, if they had to sacrifice anything. And I really wanted to show in that film the dynamics of family and responsibility. And I also really wanted to kind of have I really wanted to work with a female identified lead, because I feel like that's not really also showcased as well. And so I interviewed a lot of female identified Filipinos, and I asked them, what are you pursuing? How's your, I'll interview them like, how's your home life? How's everything? And through that interview, something that was really prominent throughout the entire thing was kind of this dynamic of, what was it called? It was the idea of how we never really say, I love you, and everything. And even though we show it even in the Filipino community, even though we show it in different ways, where it's like, have you eaten? Have you drinking some water? Like, we don't, it was very prominent through all the interviews that we don't physically, like our parents my parents and folks who I've interviewed parents would not tell them, hey, you know, I'm proud of you and I love you for what you're doing. So I wanted to kind of tackle that issue of what if somebody left their responsibilities from home just to pursue higher education because they wanted to not only have a better life for themselves, but to kind of make sure that they are successful so that their family can be successful. And at the end of the day, you know, they just really need to hear that, is that from the people that matter to us the most, through the trials and tribulations of going to pursue higher education and sacrificing to be away from family and friends and loved ones, is for someone to say, hey, I recognize that you are doing a lot, and although you're not home and you're not helping with X amount of responsibilities, just know that we love you. And that was something I really wanted to tackle with Mista and how because sometimes at the end of the day, people need to hear that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Paula. I think one of the things for folks that haven't watched it yet, please watch. I really like the fact how you utilize cell phones to communicate with each other. What we, you know, like sort of this moment where we can be someone when next to us and we're communicating with somebody far away and we're not having this personal relationship with her. So thank you for that. I want to pop over to Amrit, also another family story, really between you and your sibling. And while this is a narrative, it kind of brings your whole family in here. And you, I think you do have two other siblings, and your other one's a producer on here too. So I'd like to bring you to the forefront and talk about your film and really the intentions for you to showcase this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what was the last part you said? Is there any...
your intentions, what you want people to take away from it, and sort of this process for you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Francis. Hi, everyone. My name is Amrit. My pronouns are she, her. Hi, Seth. I see you over there cheering for me. So cute. So I made this very, like, emotionally triggering and, like, very traumatic, honestly, like film that at the time when I was making it, I didn't realize I would traumatize myself as much as I did by making it. But I made this film last summer called Undocumented, and the the English translation from Hindi is Borrowed Dreams. And this project was made with two of my other siblings, my sisters Amani and Jazz. Amani is the other person who is casted in there along with myself. And that was solely because, honestly, we didn't have money to cast other folks, so we just put ourselves in our own story. And then Jazz was the producer, and we all co-wrote this, and we all really put our own kind of stories and our own traumas and emotional guilt into our, undocumented stories into this film. And it was a very, very interesting process because, one, we had never made a short film ever, together, and so it was a very, very big learning experience. There was a lot of errors that we made. There's a lot of things that we didn't think would happen that did happen. So it was very interesting to work with family on that level, but then also to have family be in the film as sisters was a very interesting thing for us because we didn't realize that it would it would be, like I said, very triggering because it is close to us. So that was a big thing. And then, just like talking about it now makes me just feel so like emotional because it really did take a lot away from us in terms of our energy and, just our mental capacity. After that film, we shot it in August, edited and had everything done by September. After that project, I couldn't touch another creative project for almost a year. Like, I didn't make anything until like maybe May or June. And that kind of speaks to the fact of like when we're working on such personal stories, especially as undocumented, queer, people of color, the subject matter is so close to us, and it sometimes is us, that we need to take so much time for ourselves. And I think that was one of the biggest things I learned from making this film. So when folks watch this film, I would just like them to keep in mind that this is such a personal story to us as sisters, as well as like, folks who are still kind of going through a lot of, different difficulties and obstacles as low income, queer women of color who are also undocumented. So that would be one of the biggest things. And then also to just keep in mind that it is a heavy film. And so if you yourself are undocumented or someone you know is undocumented and is watching it, to just let them know that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just sort of, a lot of this that I've noticed, the common thread for all of you is just really these personal stories, whether it is sort of self-documentation or being translated over to a narrative. You know, I'm gonna sort of pick up from Rahi, what Rahi talked about, you know, at Getting Real was really this process of growth. And Rahi, I want to talk about your film a little bit. 30, I'm assuming it's you turning 30 years ago, and then kind of going through this process of growth. So can you just share with us this piece that you know that you created?
Yes, thank you. I also just want to thank y'all for creating this space. I've never been in a space like this, sharing actually like someone wanting to hear about my art and be able to like talk about the process about my art. So I just feel so grateful, and also kind of like premiering this film in an Asian film festival is like my dream. Like, I feel like my values are actually aligning, that because, you know, like for me, I want to, like, this collective is about by us, for us, because it does not exist for us. So like, you know, this is a film about my story. I created it, and it's for, you know, people that can relate to it. 30, yeah, I also just want to shout out to Dario for being so vulnerable. I was feeling so emotional, and I resonated with so many things that he was sharing. And I think the piece that he said about, you know, once you get that, like, when he was referring to like hip hop artists, and like you get that first project off your chest, the world is your oyster. I totally resonate with that. So 30, yes, it is about me turning 30. And it's not about like 30, the number did not feel like a milestone. It was my journey from like only suffering to healing. It felt like a milestone where I didn't have access to tools, or I didn't have access to even the word healing. So it was very much a milestone where I was intentionally allowing myself to create space to heal. So yeah, I was born in Bangladesh. I lived there for 14 years. Then I moved to New York City, lived there for another 14 years. And I lived with my parents. I grew up in in Bangladesh. I grew up with Bangladeshi people. And then I grew up in a predominant like Black, Latinx, immigrant neighborhoods in Jamaica, Queens. Then I lived in a public housing with my parents. And a huge part of me not being able to start my creative life in a way was because of our hardship as undocumented family and immigrant family. We were all like, we're 3 siblings, we're all supporting our families, my parents were like working at fast food restaurants for like $7 an hour. So like with family of 5, everyone had to help out. So I moved out of my parents when I was 28 years old. So, and I feel like I think like at that point, like I was able to focus on myself and my life. And I think a lot of emotional baggage just like came onto surface. And so like when I turned 30, I wanted to it was also the timing where I was in my life at the time. And also I think 30 kind of like the number does have some significance. Like I think growing up South Asian, I feel like the fact that I'm still single, like there's a lot of pressure of not being married and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it kind of felt like I had made autonomous decisions about my life that like, now that I'm 30, no one's gonna be like, oh, like, I feel like the pressure was kind of off. And there was like some sense of empowerment that I felt like I make choices about my life now. And so the film basically came about is where I wanted to, I basically took a whole week off to like have a meditative journey with myself and sort of spiritually discover who I am and where I was at that time. And so the film has 3 chapters, if you will, shedding, cleansing, and celebrating. And the shedding process was very much about just recognizing the things that like I did not want to embody anymore. And so I had shaved my head all the way to the skin. I think the significance of that was that I wanted to connect to the very core of who I am. And in some way, it just felt like even to my skin, like I wanted to feel every part of my body. And so it was, yeah, there was more to it. And I also, the film, initially my intention for the film was to like exhibit and show as an exhibit form. And I had showcased the film at that time. It was made in 2016 at various galleries. And the way I had the setup was the shedding and cleansing was in 2 monitors, and the celebrating was projected onto a wall. I also wanted it to be, for me, it was almost like, you know, going into a mosque, even though women are not really, I grew up Muslim and I didn't actually go to the mosque, but just any like sacred space where you go for prayer. For me, this was a prayer or like a spiritual sort of practice this whole week. And so I also picked a spot in every gallery where I wanted people to experience it with me and not just see it in a 2-dimensional way. So before this festival, it was actually not intended for it to be a film. And I actually didn't have enough time to, so I had, what folks are seeing in the festival is actually the same kind of like exhibit version, like meshed together in 2-dimensional way. But this, like submitting it to the festival inspired me to work on it again, and I started re-editing it. So I'm super excited about it. I've been working on the script last couple of weeks. So I hope to like showcase the edited version again. But sorry, I'm taking too long. But to wrap it up, yeah, so, you know, another part of like showcasing an exhibit was that bringing in astrology a little bit, like I'm a triple water sign, so I have, I feel like I experience everything very intensely. So when I'm expressing what I feel, which this film was about, what I was going through, it felt like it had a lot of textures and layers to it, and I needed folks to sort of like touch it and feel it. So there was a soundscape to it. So the shedding part was like the sound of scissors, which is like really, I felt like, part of me felt like I wanted to literally like cut the pieces of me that was identities of me that was imposed on me that did not like feel me. So that like that sharp sound was something that like I resonated with. The cleansing part was, the cleansing part of the film is me bathing and also cleansing myself in a ritualistic way. In Muslim prayer, before you pray, you do azu, and you have to cleanse yourself in a specific way. So I was, you know, taking a bath, and you know, the purpose for that is also like you are starting a new journey. So so there was the sound of water, and I also just resonate with like water on so many levels. And then the third piece, the third part of his celebration. So I trained as an Indian classical dancer for about 12 years. And the form of dance I did is Kathak. And we have to wear these ghungroos, which, yeah, this Indian bells you wear on your ankle for the dance. So the sound for the celebrating was the sound of ghungroos. And for me, I find most joy when I'm dancing. So the celebration part of the film was me kind of like dancing. And also you will see the visual of it is that I'm putting this body paint on my feet, and that's something you like that's a that like we decorate our feet for Kathak dance. So that's something what I was doing. And yeah, so anyways, but the process for me was very intimate, and it was completely like filmed by me in a very, like I just kind of self-isolated myself and went through this meditative journey, and I wanted to document it to be able to like share that process with other folks.
I really appreciate the soundscapes to what you presented, and I actually just put headphones on and just to sort of hear it as it is. I'm turning 30 plus 10 soon, and I sort of just gave me a little bit sort of that transition to just to sort of kind of feel sort of these stages in life, right? Even though it's just arbitrary. I want to transfer over to Lydia. I just, your film was also about your journey. And as Rahi mentioned, sort of this process also of suffering and resilience. Lydia, can you just share with the folks watching what your film was about and anything else you'd like to share about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to be part of this festival and this community and with people that I love. So I feel very, very excited and happy. This is actually the first, I guess, the first time that I showed this specific film in a festival and in public, and I feel like it's very vulnerable because it's very, very personal. And it pretty much tells a little bit of my story of my, I guess, my academic struggle of being a low-income immigrant. I was born in El Salvador, and I came to the United States when I was 14. I'm a DACA recipient currently. I only live with my mom, and most of my family is in El Salvador. So I've had, to figure out things by myself most of the times, and, learn a new language, right? A new culture, adapt myself to a new country. That was really hard for me, especially as a teen, right? And so what the film really tells is my journey of attending school as an undocumented individual in California, going for my bachelor's, and then after, acquiring a master's program, and especially facing a lot of, how can I say, financial hardships, not having the income, not having the financial support from anybody, and just trying to figure things out by myself in a way. But always, and as you see in the film, faith is such a big part of who I am. And so in anything that I've dealt with, regardless of how hard it is, the circumstances that I need to face, I think having that faith in my case, I'm a Christian person, having that faith into God has always helped me through all of it, and then some pretty, as I share there, some pretty amazing things have happened. I've seen, support from people that I never thought about. I've seen, like, a book that I mentioned. There's an example in the film where I found that book, in a place where I least expected it to find it at a time that I needed it the most. And so there has been a lot of things in my growth. And every single time that I face either something amazing in my life, something that I'm very happy about, or maybe something that I'm struggling, something very hard, I usually record myself. I've been doing so since I was 17 years old. So I have a pretty extensive, I guess, series of vlogs of just talking, and it's pretty interesting to see myself and my thoughts and my, my process from different years and up to now. And so I did use a couple clips from that. It was very expository in this case because I wanted to talk about faith and how, I was able to go to school and graduate from there and all of those things at the time where because it was pre-DACA time. So I could not have a driver's license. I could not have financial aid for school and all those things. But then things changed with the DACA program. It definitely, obviously, helped me a lot. And I was able to attend Castle Long Beach. I moved down to Long Beach, and that's kind of like featured in that in this specific film. And then, you know, struggling there. I had food insecurity at that time. I was really struggling whether I was going to be homeless or not, because I didn't have time, you know, money to pay the rent. And I was just struggling with all those financial hardships and emotional hardships, and the fact that, you know, you have this pressure as an immigrant and as a first generation college student. You're like, I cannot fail my parents. My parents have done all these things for me, you know, and you have that pressure that you cannot fail. And if you fail one class, you get one F. Oh my God, that's the worst thing in your life, right? You put all these pressures on you because you know that you cannot take any second chances or take another class, because that means paying more for those classes, right? So I was dealing with all of those emotions. It was a really hard journey to graduate, but because of those experiences that I lived in those 2 years that I went to Cal State Long Beach, that kind of motivated me to go after literally what I say on the documentary, the impossible, right? I decided to pursue film farther and do a master's program at Chapman University, which is a private university, and I did not have any scholarships, and that's like about 48K or so per year, and it was 2 years program. And I was like, okay, well, I was able to, you know, if I was able to never go homeless, and if I was able to acquire some food from food bank, I can do this too, right? And so I went into that challenge. It was super hard, but I graduated last year actually. So, and I paid it all. So I no debt, no nothing, you know, and it was really challenging, but yeah, so that's kind of like hopefully trying to inspire other folks that no matter what, how impossible it seems, you know, whether it be financial, whether it be, you know, the fact that you're a first generation professional, first generation student, you can make something, you know, because we come from very strong people. Our ancestors and our families, they're badass. And so I'm like, this is just paying tribute to them. And so that's kind of like what the film is about.
Oh, thank you. You're a badass. You're all badasses. I sort of want to allude back to what Paula said before, was, you know, with their film about sort of first generation, you know, college students too, right? Not just as immigrants, but sort of that and that process. Even for me, you know, I think one of the things I enjoy is like, oh, I also went to Cal State Long Beach. And so with Seal and with Rachel here watching as well, we're from that space, and understanding and meeting folks during in college too, who were living in their cars and eating top ramen or trying to just get by, and sort of this pressure not to fail, especially because you're the first generation, your family, even though your family itself can't actually guide you, right? You have this pressure from your family, from your parents. Go to college, get your degree, but mom, dad, how can I get financial aid? Oh, I don't know. Right. And so I appreciate everybody that goes through that process. And every time it said I'm a first generation college graduate or even just student, it's really, really, I don't think a lot of people understand the heaviness of it too. Right. So congratulations. It was just really, once I watched it, it's like, oh, you're a Chapman. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And kind of inspiring that. And, but thank you for sharing your faith. I want to move on over to Marcos, to a film, their protagonist Zoila. Marcos, Zoila also talks about their faith in your film. But can I invite you over to this space and just talk about Zoila with this documentary that you created?
Yeah. Thank you, Francis. I mean, first of all, I just want to express my gratitude to the Asian Pacific's Film Festival for giving this space to the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective. Just because we have, as Seth mentioned, we have been working on this to have a systemic change, and I think this is part of we're planting the seed for other filmmakers, and I think this is a great way to do that. So thank you for having us, and to Ame for leading this conversation, bringing us all together. So yes, Zoila. So I live in Koreatown, and for those people who don't know Koreatown, it's a small community, and it's very diverse. It's so diverse. In one street, you can find like a lot of people from Central America. Then the next one, there's a lot of very mainstream, and then another one, it's like just a lot of Korean shops. So we live in the same neighborhood. I would go walk my dog, and then I would always like, not always, but I would see her like walking, like pushing that cart. And there was something that draw me to it just sort of drew me to her. I didn't know what it was. So over time, I finally decided that I was going to approach Zoila and just have a conversation with her. So I did. I ended up buying some socks the first time we met, because she's always trying to sell her merchandise. So I did, and then over time we just became friends. And then every time I would see her, I would just walk my dog and then walk with her, just pushing her cart. And then it came to the point when I just saw so much. There was, I think part of this film was my view of the world. There was a lot of negativity going on in the world. And something that I saw in Zoila was her humanity. I feel like she almost reminded me of that humanity that I had lost, and then a lot of people have lost because of a lot of capitalism, a lot of things that are just going on in the world. So to me, that was a reminder. But also, that was the first film that I created that was different from the films that I've done, documentaries, which is very social justice oriented. For this, I wanted to focus more about her story and how humble she was, just to show other people, like just to like be able to remind other people about that humanity. I myself am not so much a person of faith. I think I'm culturally Catholic, but I have never been that person of faith. My parents are, but I'm not. So I respect, but I also respect that very much. So when Sole talks about faith, I know, like, I think that was a huge part of, that's a huge component of her life. So I definitely want to put that into the story when she talks about faith. But this film was mainly just to like, just as a reminder for other people to know that there's more than that. There's more than that. That just being humble with one another. Also, this film, I wanted to show something that was beautiful shot compared to the other films that I've done in the past. So yeah, it's a really short film, 3 minutes. I didn't want to bring in any social justice themes into it, because I just didn't think this was the film for that. It was more about like her journey as a business person, because also she doesn't call herself a street vendor, which I thought was really, really interesting, how she calls herself more as a business person, because that's all she's been doing in her life. And because of the help, and I think part of this film, something really powerful about this is that when we create like this type of documentaries, is that we can create an impact. When I first shared the first trailer of the film, it got a lot of support, and it got one person from the community. He ended up donating some money to like, so that we could buy her like a small table, so that she doesn't longer have to go walking around. She can just stay in one position where she can just like sell her merchandise, which is, I think, at the end of the day, that's for me, that's part of the beauty of these short films, that we can create some type of change within that person.
It was beautifully shot. I think everybody that watched it, and knowing that it was in LA and K-Town, I thank you for sort of pointing out, how this can humanize somebody in the world absence of humanity. I think for a lot of folks, for even, undocumented folks, people of color, you're sort of invisible, right? And then I think folks that will walk by Zoila like on a day-to-day basis would just be ignored. And we're invisible and ignored until we're blamed for something, right? So thank you for sort of humanizing her. which she is, and sort of also the humility that was sort of brought, and just, you know, like the happiness with just making $8 a day for somebody buying 8 pairs of socks or something, and that was sort of important. One of the things that, you know, a lot of this, you know, we are the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival, and we also focus on LA. That LA is just very diverse but segregated, and a place like K-Town that's diverse, right? But also just still not connected with each other. But so thank you for bringing that to light. I want to bring up Will. Will, talk about your film, Isel, and just sort of how it came through. I think a lot of people think it's a documentary, but talk about, Will, just talk about the process and the project for now.
Hey everyone, my name is Will. I'm Peruvian. I was born in Lima, and I immigrated to the States when I was 7 years old with my mom. And I studied political science in college. And political science, you know, had not a lot to do with film. Once I finished college, I went through a period where I was helping my father. He had been deported, so I was doing his gardening business. And then DACA came to be, and so I was able to get more involved in, you know, legally getting legal work or whatever. But I also became more involved in the immigrant rights movement and in the media aspects of the movement. So that was around like 2012. And so I started naturally with just documenting our movement, and then, you know, this whole thing that about the media portraying us in a kind of like similar ways of like sad stories, and there is obviously a lot of sadness, you know, but that's not the only thing that defines immigrants here, undocumented immigrants. So with this group called the Undeportables that I co-founded, we started making like satire and just videos, short videos, making fun of like, you know, the system, or, you know, cultural appropriators or nonprofits that do problematic things, like, you know, from our very grassroots perspective as undocumented folks who have been marginalized. And so after that, I went into, I guess I wanted to explore more through a couple of years, I started rediscovering a passion of mine growing up, which was astronomy. And so over a couple of years, just through conversations with friends, like I had nerdy friends who were also into science, and so I would talk to them about the idea, and it was very visual. It really, a lot of it was very visual, and it wasn't like a narrative thing. So I would just get visual representations of what I thought, you know, what speaks to my heart, and also like something that I see that's unfortunately missing in a lot of our communities of color that are marginalized, which is like this appreciation or this paths towards being scientists or astronomers, or, you know, that part of our humanity. So this project is kind of like us as people. I guess my intention is just to share in the wonder that I know is real in our communities, and that we don't really have access to, you know. How many telescopes have you seen in the hood, you know? So, but if you go back, you know, 500, 800, thousands of years, our ancestors, indigenous folks, have been, you know, very in touch with that, and they have done math, and they have explored science, and they have been engineers. They had observatories, they've engineered mountains, and so when I see, you know, folks of like me with a lot of indigenous background, and I see the unfortunate state of how much oppression there is. And I don't see like a lot of that out there. So I wanted to show those visions, and and then this became a very community driven project. As you can see in the film, there's a lot of youth, there's like actual homeless people that live here. I'm in Boyle Heights, by the way, in Los Angeles. And so a lot of it, the setups were intentional, and but a lot of the interactions were mostly just, what do you call it, improvised, and we just captured the moment. And so, like, for example, one of the homeless folks looking at the moon through the telescope, and I don't think she had ever seen that, actually. So you saw her genuine reaction to, what the moon looks like from closer. And that's that sense of curiosity and wonder that a lot of our communities, I think, have lost touch with. And so I wanted to just share that. And for me, it's futurism, indigenous futurism. And for me, that is, creating inspiration for people of color, for people with a lot of indigenous background to see themselves as the leader, as leaders, as potential leaders of humanity, because I'm tired of seeing white astronauts and white people saving humanity in space kind of thing, So and it's real. So I'm very inspired by like Octavia Butler, Afrofuturism, and I see, all you got to do is look at our history as indigenous people, and you'll see a lot of that. And unfortunately, a lot of it, like libraries of Mayan folks, were burned, and a lot of it has been lost, but there's still a lot of surviving things that inspire me. So I want to keep doing that. And so yeah, it was basically non-professional actors, people here in the neighborhood of Boyle Heights. There's a low-income immigrant community just coming together. Some youth from San Fernando Valley, and friends of mine that have been in organizing spaces in the movement that would bring like markers that we needed. And so we had no budget. So back then I wasn't as technically skilled with how to shoot and properly like white balance and all these technical things, but it was very raw, and you can see that. So yeah. And what else? Am I taking too long?
No, I think that was great. I think my favorite part is some of those aha moments, just seeing, the moon or the stars, explaining that, the sun's a star and star is the sun, and those. And I think for me, the symbolism of it is really looking past, right? Looking up. And like you said, sort of, these are sort of natural things that were sort of taken away, and being privileged. And, like, as you said, not enough people of color are astronauts or explorers of the universe, right? Because we're not given that privilege to have those fantasies, right? Like, we always have to be real, and like whatever's, but we can't tell sometimes you're not allowed to tell your dreams or nightmares, and that other people are afforded to explore Netflix, to explore on other things, and that's where we're at, right? So I want to open up to everybody. I can't believe it's been an hour already, but it's just been I'm really privileged right now just to get to know you all, just one by one, just speaking, and hopefully everybody else too in the crowd. I really just have one question I want to put out there, and I know it might not be for all of you, but just the use of home videos for a lot of you. I'm assuming that some of you actually have home videos and we didn't see it for this time. And Lydia, I think set even, your film before when we had Vision to Real kind of create and showed that too. And you mentioned Miko Revereza, Disintegration 93, using home videos as well. Can folks chime in, sort of, use that as that artistic process of your filmmaking, but also a way to put yourself into the story?
Well, for me, I think it's just initially I started off documenting my family and myself and my stories, just as kind of like a history project that I want to do in the future. If I ever had kids or whoever in my family, I want to pass it on. It's kind of like a part of history, and that kind of also goes with my interest in just documentary filmmaking, in general. But I think it's very powerful to capture those moments, because life is changing all the time. We're not the same every day, and so I'm trying to capture as much as I can of everyday life. And then in the future, if I'm able to work on a documentary, that will be great. But I actually do want to work on a documentary about my mom. That's like my goal. I'm like, I need to make it happen. And so, yes, I just continue to film that way. And I think there's power in that.
One of the biggest things about my film is it's literally half of it is just home videos that were made by my dad, actually, in the early 2000s. So they're literally from like 1999 all the way till I think about 2008 or 9. And it's all about like myself and my younger siblings, like immigrating here, as well as like when some of my other siblings were born here. And so for me, we actually didn't find these videos until literally the last week of editing, and they weren't even going to be a part of the actual process. But once my sister and I uncovered them from our very old like Sony camcorder, like we had to get a whole converter to even like look at the little tapes and like figure everything out. Once we actually did that, we both like just sat there and cried, because we had not seen we had never seen ourselves, as kids, because my parents were always too poor to have like, cameras or like print out photos of us, and have photos everywhere. Like have photos of us around the house. So we've never really had archival footage of ourselves. And so that was like the first time we saw ourselves like running around and like acting like little kids. And so that felt like very humanizing for us, because growing up and even now, we always felt like we never really had a childhood, because we were always, helping our parents and trying to help ourselves. So it was just really interesting to kind of put that extra component in there. And that's what makes this film so like, even when I see this film now, like I know it's not like the best film and it's not going to win Oscars, but to me that film, like, it makes me cry, and I'm just like, oh my god, I made this, my family made this. So it's just it's just a wild experience, and then also I think one of the reasons like we often don't see like our own footage is like so priceless is because it's just not there, right? And like when white folks use archival footage, it's seen as like the biggest thing, and they've done like that thing, like this is that director that's like created this big masterpiece. But it's like when we make stuff like that, it's not seen as like, oh my gosh, this is so groundbreaking, But now it's so amazing to see so many of us using this, and and doing these amazing things with our archival footage that at one point wasn't seen as like anything that was great. So to me, it was a really, really great experience. Yeah.
Anybody else that want to jump in and sort of that uses archival footage? I want to say that archival because sometimes that word just becomes just for institutions, right? Or these official institutions, and our own stories are just home videos, right? And not sort of our documentation or our stories. But go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, I guess I could. I wanted to kind of. I used mostly Hi8 and VHS camera footage, primarily because I wanted to kind of show the characters and their life outside of, I guess, what is particularly happening within the story, I guess, or like adding another context to the world building. So with like so to what like Snapchat and IG is, Instagram stories are, it's kind of the same thing with like VHS cameras, where there's this level of organic chemistry where there isn't a pre-made set shot or anything like that. It's just a bunch of characters in a room with one camera. Where home videos are kind of this reflection of like nostalgia, or I guess a gateway to like memories and stuff. And so with Kamusta, I wanted to kind of tackle that VHS camera as a way for which that family might have used it, or the importance of it for when, you know, their little girl is going to college and everything, and capturing those moments of, hey, like it's not, you know, we're going to college. And then for Shaded Complexion, it's the exact same idea of it's called of organic filmmaking, where it's like, hey, I think for that, what I did was I had this undocumented it's called couple, um, that I told them, hey, like, you know, I'll let you borrow the VHS camera just from whatever you want to film, and then 2 days later, you know, I'll get it back and I'll get it digitalized and everything like that. Just where there's that free range of, you know, that it's just people and it's just things and memories, and this footage, whether it be like database or archival or through our phones, is a way or a gateway to kind of look back from where we are and where we're going, and what I guess what people go through, I guess.
Yeah, again, I think I saw a set post. Shout out to our parents, right? Documenting these. They're also OG filmmakers in a way, and they don't get that credit of doing that. Folks, I just want to go one last time around the table and ask, what can we expect next from you, or what's happening? How can we, what can we catch? And I'll start with you, Paolo, before we go around.
What do you mean by like what can we catch?
Like, what's next? What other projects you're working on?
Yeah, okay, that's exciting. Yeah, honestly, I'm working on a lot of the films that I like to work on is mostly narrative, commercial work, but I am working. I have a bunch of short film ideas and scripts that like to tackle social and political issues, and like to have brown and black bodies on camera. So I guess, I mean, some future works that I'm trying to work on is displaying, you know, APIs or those, or I guess the next film I want to tackle is about kind of growing up and being an API in a community filled with gangs, or being formerly incarcerated, because I feel like a lot of the media doesn't really represent APIs as folks who, you know, are in gangs or do or are formerly incarcerated. Especially I want to tackle terrorism. So those are some films that I'm like working on, and wanting to write and stuff like that.
Great. I'm gonna popcorn over to Will. Will, what are you making happen right now that we can support you?
I'm doing some shoots, like photo shoots. Basically, I'm mostly focusing on cinematography right now. That's my long-term thing so I've been coordinating like photo shoots with folks in order to develop myself as a cinematographer. And I'm also working, haven't been working on it actively lately, but I do have another indigenous futurism project that I've been developing. It's pretty exciting to me. It's like a Mayan woman who lives in LA and a couple decades, and she harnesses the power of gravitational waves in order to go to and it ends up going to another planet, and all the while this is a lot of it, the way she accesses it is inspired by a Mayan codex, and so I'm still writing that, and it's challenging for me to write, but I have a lot of visions just like the DSL one, so I think I'm going to start with a short for sure, and then at some point try to make it into a feature. So yeah, and those are some of the things. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Looking forward to that. Marcos, I'm going to pop over to you. Please share anything you're making happen, especially right now with 31 days until the election.
Sorry, I was muted. So I'm in post-production for a music video that I directed, but also Mario from Mario and Nicole from the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective, they were also part of it. Mario was the producer and Nicole was the creative director for the music video. So we're so excited to bring that to life and share that with everyone in the next month, hopefully. We're in post-production for that now. And the other project that I have, it's another documentary. It's about 15 to 20 minutes about Karina, who's a transgender woman from Mexico who lives in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. And she turned 20. I mean, she turned 50, but she decided to celebrate her quinceañera, which is Sweet 16. And this is something that we rarely see with transgender women being celebrated. Often we see them like on the news or we read on the news or the TV that they're being like killed, murdered, but we never see them celebrated or thriving. So this is basically just to celebrate her life, but also to show other transgender women that and also to change the system, that tradition that transgender women should also have a quinceañera. So that's I filmed part of it. So now I'm trying to collect some coins to do the second half and the post-production.
Okay. Put anything for everybody, put anything on the chat where folks can catch whatever you're making happen too. I'm gonna go over to you. I know you've been doing Brown Girl Joy and all these different things that you're making happen. Can you tell us what's next up for you?
Yeah, there is a project that I'm doing right now. It's a short film closely related to my life that I won't be sharing details about because I'm actually going to be announcing something in the next couple of weeks. But aside from that, my partner and I are actually co-writing something for the very first time together. It's actually going to be a web series about their experiences as someone who is Black and was adopted, but still from the communities of San Bernardino, where it still has like the highest murder rate, but they grew up pretty sheltered with their mom, their adopted mom, and just kind of exploring their relationship with their families, the different families, as well as like also understanding where they come from, and I'm kind of just helping help them through that process of writing and kind of just assisting in whatever ways they need me to assist. But it's just very, very exciting because I've never heard a story like theirs before, and so it's just so cool to work on that. And they also went to CSUN along with myself, and so it's kind of cool to see like them figuring out and kind of using storytelling as a way to heal as a Black person, especially in a time such as this. And so it's going to be something, and we're going to start filming it next year. So yeah.
Great. No, that's exciting. Thank you for sharing. Lydia, what's next for you? What are you making happen?
Yes. Right now, I'm actually in the post-production, almost finishing a short portrait. It's going to be a 4-minute film about this nurse and DACA recipient and her family in Pennsylvania. And that's going to be for the Latino broadcast media. And so I'm finishing that, but I'm about to start also for another work that I do for a nonprofit. I'm about to start a digital campaign sharing stories of DACA recipients that need a specific permit called advanced parole that would allow them to go to their home countries to, for urgent humanitarian reasons and also educational purposes. So I'm going to be working with that. We're going to be filming over 32 1-minute videos, and we're going to be doing a social media campaign with that. So I'm going to be working on that as well.
Okay, great. Please share that in the chat, and we'll look forward to that. Rahi, pop over to you. What's happening with your creativity side, but also please share what's happening with the collective as well that we can look forward to.
Thank you. So 6 of the films, I think all 6 from that were featured here, will also be showcased in the New Orleans Film Festival. I forget the dates, I think mid-October. There will also be a short panel where Dorian Gomez from here, from Durham, North Carolina, and I will be doing a short panel following the showcase. I'll also be on a panel talking about Decolonizing documentary in the Philadelphia Asian American Pacific Film Festival in November. So keep an eye out for that. And I just again want to give a shout out to this festival. I feel like for the last couple of years, or last 3 years, I've been so involved with cultural organizing, with the collective, and just a lot of like, I guess, culture shift work in the doc world. And I feel like I had to take a step back from like really creating. But y'all, I feel like this is also my birthday month. I feel like I am ready. I am so ready. And so there's a lot of projects I have in like development. Also, I can't wait to share the edited version of 30. So just wait. I'm really excited. So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah. No, we're excited for you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Last but not least, Seth, any final words, how we can support UFC, any other things to look forward to, all the other work that you're doing? We didn't get to talk about sort of abolition and more revisioning, but, you know, sort of this process that you're continuing. Any last words?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Josin in the behind the scenes, one of our members who's really making it happen for the collective and this festival. So thank you to Josin. Also to Dorian, who is right here with me. Please check out her podcast, Nuestro South, which I put a link for in the chat box. The collective is taking in more members. So please join us anytime that you would like. We are so blessed to be in community with everyone. Thank you to Firelight Media, to LA Asian, and shameless plug on the 16th. Looking for Home is a program where my film will be shared for LA Asian. Check out Filmmakers Collective on Instagram, where you can learn more how to join the collective, and we're really out here to support everyone. So thank you, Francis, Asil, Josin, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. For folks, please catch the films, and you don't have to watch them all in one sitting. It's through the week or through the month. It's pay what you can, and all the proceeds will go directly to the collective. So please share out with everybody and share these stories. These are all wonderful stories that sort of very specific, but humanizing and universal for each other. And thank you for supporting visual communications. Thank you for supporting our artists. We look forward more. We want to do this again. I'm not sure if we're going to do this again at the festival, because we want you to also grow out past us, but you're always going to have a space with this, and we're going to keep doing this. So looking forward to the other film festivals that you're playing with, all the other conversations you're pushing forward, and through this growth process with you all, and I'm blessed, and we're all blessed to be part of this together. So thank you, everybody. Blessings and blessings, and take care. We'll see you soon.